Well, welcome back to another installment of our project course. And in this week, we're going to look at two critical sections of our manuscripts. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the introduction section of your manuscript and what some of the key content is that you want to show up in this section. And of course, all of this work that we're doing and talking about the introduction is in order to build skills to transform practice so that your DNP project is embedded not only in a specific context where you transform that practice, but then you take those findings and you disseminate them in the broader scholarly community in order to transform and improve practice in that arena as well. And so a solid introduction section to your manuscripts provides the foundation for telling the story of what you did. So what goes into an introduction section? Really, you have four main components. The first one is you start by telling the story of what is known about the topic or issue from the scholarly perspective, from other journals and science that has been written about your topic area. Now, if you have a project that has a couple of components, you may have several different summary sections that contribute to this the scientific background. We'll come back to that. But the second one is you want to summarize what's happening in practice. How do you know that there's an issue or problem or challenge in your practice arena? And you do that by summarizing the practice, what's known about your practice setting or similar practice settings. And a third component is you talk about a theoretical framework that's going to help you to understand and analyze this issue in practice. And those three components come together to then create a gap statement, or what is the issue or problem that you're specifically going to fill through your DNP project. So this introduction sets the stage then for your methods section, where you talk about what you did in your practice setting to close that gap. And so all of these components collectively form your introduction section. And we talked earlier about how a scientific manuscript follows essentially the five-part narrative structure of ancient Greek literature and plays. And your scientific manuscript is beginning with a statement of the problem or issue, and then the gap that exists. How can you fill that gap? So that's what your introduction section does. It brings the reader to see how you are specifically going to fill the gap that's been identified. Then in your method section, you're going to tell the reader what did you and your team do about that gap. And then you're going to tell the story of what happened when you applied those methods. So that's the results section. And then, so what? What does it matter for science and practice because of your project? So that is essentially your introduction, methods, results, and conclusions. And you can see that after you execute your project and you've discovered something, you should be in a better future state than you were at the beginning. You'll have some information then to apply to that gap that you identified based on what you did and what happened when you did that. So that's an introduction section in a nutshell. We're certainly going to look at the introduction section in a bit more detail, and there are some cases of very strongly written introduction sections on the course website to help you as you think about crafting your own introduction section. If you use the template for the course, that will help you to think about key components to write in your introductions. You outline the manuscript. These are some big buckets that you need to address in helping the reader understand your project in context. Well, here on week 3, you can always come back to this template to help you and guide you as you think about core components of your introduction section. So here in the introduction, the outline template, you can see these same hallmarks of this, what's known from science, what's known from practice, the theory that's going to guide you in your project, and then the gap or the problem statement. So you can see here you have a summary of the problem or issue, the literature related to the problem. So this is the science, what's been published about the issue. You may appraise evidence for potential solutions, and you may use a theoretical framework to guide your methods, results, and discussion section. That's essentially what is known. Then you talk about what's not known, the gap in scholarship and practice, with a problem statement or something like that, and a very brief statement of what you're going to do to close that gap using an aim, overall aim, and specific objectives if it's relevant for your journal. So you can see those big buckets are absolutely represented here in the template that you've used to outline your manuscript and that you can use to continue to refine and hone your message in your manuscript. So in this one example on the course website on maternal mortality, you can see in the introduction section there are a couple of key areas. You have one here that's talking about the global burden of maternal death in general. Then you move into information about this package of signal functions that have been used to measure clinical ability to respond to emergencies. There's a section then that talks about the tracers or the drugs that are a part of the signal functions. And then there's a statement here about the gap. There's scholarly evidence suggesting something beyond the signal functions is needed. And then a very brief statement here about an alternative model that's going to be used in this study. So you can see it tells the story of maternal mortality and measurement strategies to use at facilities. It talks about what's known on maternal mortality, talks about what's known about signal functions, and then a gap in that current practice that then launches the rest of the manuscript. So on the course website, on the reading section, you can skim down here, and there's some examples of some scholars at Emory that have written manuscripts that have strong introduction and method sections that you could consider using as examples when you write your own sections. In addition, there's a tab here that includes journals that typically have strong introduction and method section. If you want to find an example where someone else has written in your topic area, you could skim here. There's quality improvement journals, health system focused journals, clinical practice journals, some on qualitative methods and global health. So for example, if you wanted to do a quality improvement project, you might look at BMJ Quality and Safety and look at one of their manuscripts to see how the introduction and method section are written for quality improvement. And then you can see by example, typically a very solid manuscript that is presented in these journals. Of course, I can't guarantee the quality of all manuscripts that you might find in these journals, but in general, these are well-reputed, solid journals for the introduction and method section. So as you think about those big buckets, what's known from science, what's known from practice, what theoretical model or framework will guide my work, and what gap am I filling? You think about those four things, those are critical skills to help you craft a very robust introduction section to your manuscript. So have fun writing, revising, and refining the story of your manuscript, specifically as you think about your introduction. Have a great week.